I'll see you guys in the dark.
For reference, I work as a barista in a coffee shop inside a larger store. I am one of a handful of male baristas at my shop. I am gay and very open about this. I wear pride shoes. I have a pride flag attached to my name tag, and I have a couple of wristbands with rainbows and phrases like Orlando Strong and a local LGBT plus center. So, the other day I was working my shift at a register. A gentleman comes up to me and smiles. I think he noticed the pride flag on my name tag, and he didn't explicitly mention it at first. He says he doesn't know what to order and asks for my opinion. Now, I'm not particularly a coffee drinker, but I know what drink fits what taste. So I ask him what he likes, and I try to give him some recommendations. As I'm talking, I can tell he's paying more attention to me than to what I'm saying, which I am completely okay with. He was a shorter, well-built man, had beautiful eyes, a nice beard, basically the perfect DILF. Eventually, he decides on a super sweet iced coffee that we have, and I go to make it for him. As I'm making the drink, one of my coworkers leans over and whispers, "I think that customer just took a picture of you." That was a bit of a red flag, but I thanked her and kind of brushed it off. I gave him his drink, and he smiles. He points to the pride flag and says, "I love that flag. Where can I get me one of those?" I laughed and said I got it from a pride event I went to a few years ago. He then said, "And where can I get the person it's attached to?" I immediately feel a rush, and I start blushing, but trying to act professional, I brush it off. He eventually takes his drink and sits at one of the tables. I continue going out about my day, debating whether I should give it to this guy or not. Every now and then, I should glance at his table to see him looking at me. No matter when I looked, it seemed like he was looking directly at me. I started to get that weird feeling of heart eyes with red flags. Then I noticed that he wasn't taking a single drink out of his coffee. Remember, it was an iced coffee, so I could see the clear plastic cup. When I have a break and go to wipe down some of the tables, I stop by his table and ask if he didn't like the drink. If not, I could make him a new one free of charge. He hands me the drink and mentions he's not sure if it's too sweet for him or not, and asks me to try it. I politely decline, telling him I don't drink coffee. He's shocked and asks me why I'm working here and blah blah blah. As we're talking though, his questions start to change. "So, do you lift at all?" "No, not really." "Well, how much do you think you could lift if you had to? The job requirement is 50 pounds, so I guess at least that much." "Well, I've learned it's good to be able to lift at least half your body weight. How much do you weigh?" Immediate red flag goes off. There was something about the combination of the drink and the two questions that made me feel like I was being asked how much of a fight I'd be able to hold, especially if I was drugged. I've been drugged at a party before, and these things are red flags that I have learned to pick up on. So I kindly and quickly end the conversation and go back to cleaning up tables. As the hours go by, he continues to sit there, not drinking his drink. Other employees and a couple of managers ask if everything's okay, and he says he's perfectly happy. Every now and then, he takes a phone call, and at one point I swear I can see a guy on his phone at a different part of the store talking opposite of the guy at the table. Suddenly, I start to feel like there's more eyes on me than I realize. I pull one of my managers to the back and tell him that I'm getting a weirder and weirder feeling about the guy, and the manager says we'll keep an eye on him. Now was closing on this shift, and so as we got closer and closer to closing time, I noticed him still sitting there. When the announcements that the store is closing in half an hour is made, he comes up to the counter and asks if he could walk me to my car after I get off. I tell him our closing duties take us at least 45 minutes after we close, and he says he's happy to wait. I politely decline, and he asks when I work next. I tell him I'm off for a couple of weeks. Well, then I feel like I should walk you to your car, especially if I might not be able to see you for a couple of weeks. No fucking way. I politely decline, and eventually he leaves. I finish my closing duties and head to the employee area. As soon as I get down there, I tell one of my managers about the situation and ask if I can take the side exit from the store. At our store, we exit out of one of the main doors after we close, but there's a side door that we can use to get into the building before we open, and that the managers use to get out after we close. He agrees, and tells me he'd walk me to my car to make sure that I'm okay, if I'm cool with waiting a little while, which I am. So I walk out of the door with a couple of managers. I get into my car, and as I'm driving away, I see a large van with extremely tinted windows parked in front of the front door. There's no way to know for sure if my customer was in that van, and if it was as ominous as I thought it was, but I know that I was not about to stay to figure out, and I took a long and winding path home that night. So, to the very hot guy that I sold my coffee to, please don't come back into my store, unless, of course, I just read all of these things wrong, and you're just socially awkward, and were actually into me, and not in a creepy way, but just to be on the safe side. Don't come back into the store. So this is a bit of an older story, as I'm in my late 20s now, and this happened while I was in high school, junior year. On mobile, so I'm sorry for any errors or spelling mistakes. When I was about 17, I was dating a kid who went to the same regional high school as me. He lived in the city that was next to my small town, so the kind of environments we were used to were completely different. You would walk barefoot down the street in my town, or leave your front door unlocked at night. You could definitely not do that where he was from. Anyway, one day our school was an early release day, and myself and my boyfriend, we'll call him D, and his friend Jay all decide to walk to Jay's house to hang out. It was a long walk from school to Jay's house, but it was in broad daylight, and there were 3 of us, so we didn't feel uncomfortable walking through the rougher parts of the city. I paid close attention to the route we took, walking along the busy and unpopular street with storefronts, through an alley, and in back of an old factory building repurposed to hold a boutique, and a sports supply shop, through an area with some construction. I'm normally bad with directions, but these landmarks helped me to figure out the path we took. We finally arrived at Jay's house, and get some snacks, hang out at a local playground to use the swings. Then Jay has to leave to go to guitar practice, and D and I hang out on our own for a bit. D eventually gets a call from his mom, saying that he has to come home because of some dumb reason. I won't get into it, that's a whole nother story. And I'm left on my own. So now, I'm in this park, in the middle of the city, by myself. Okay, I say to myself, I know how to get back, just go to the landmarks. This is how I have to navigate. I start working my way backwards through the street we took, through the construction area, past the factory building, through the alleyway. It was daytime, but these were supposed to be the most sketchy areas our trip took us through. I made it through them just fine by myself. I finally came to the busy street with the shops. Cars passed every few seconds, and there were people coming in and out of shops almost constantly. It was broad daylight, and the area was well kept and neat. It should have been the safest way to get home, right? As I am making my way to the sidewalk, a car pulls down a side street in front of me. I think that he's trying to merge onto the main street and into the traffic, so I stop to let him go. Instead of pulling forward, he rolls down the window. It's an older man, maybe early 60s. No real discerning features other than short gray hair. Seems normal enough. He speaks to me. Excuse me, do you know how I can get to Jefferson Street? I'm not from the city, so I honestly wouldn't know how to give him directions. But it's a pretty well-known street there. There were tons of major businesses on that street. It seems weird for an adult not to know how to get there. It was like not knowing how to get to Main Street. But I was a kid who didn't drive, so I didn't know. No, sorry, I don't know. Are you sure that you don't know how to get there? Nope, I'm sorry. He pauses for a moment. Why don't you get into my car with me, and you can show me how to get there? Wait, what? Now, if you've ever been in a weird situation like this, you might be familiar with the time stop sensation. It's like you're looking at everything from far away for a moment, and you can take everything in. In this moment, I'm thinking of a few things. This guy just pulled up to a 17-year-old girl, in broad daylight, on a busy street. He's blocking my path. I just told him that I don't know how to get to Jefferson Street, but he's now asking me to get into his car to show him how to get to Jefferson Street. What? Those little red flags are popping up everywhere. The buzzers and sirens and stranger danger lessons my parents taught me since I was in primary school are screaming in my brain. And if this guy's weird vibes didn't show up before, they were now. I didn't like what I was feeling. This guy was either a creep or just completely senile. I look at the old man, and am wary of him. Part of me is telling me to turn around and just walk away. Sorry, I can't. I'm gripping the strap of my backpack. His face changes. I had never actually seen this kind of thing happen before, where someone's face actually makes a shift, and this is the only time I've ever seen it. He immediately looks angry. He doesn't seem like a senile old man anymore. He yells, "Just get in the car, now!" He confirms the bad feeling in my stomach. For me, the adrenaline is now flowing, and I am both scared and angry at the same time, just at the balls of this old man. I don't know why this came to mind, but all I could do was yell, "Fuck you!" I'm standing on the sidewalk with my backpack. There's barely anything in it other than my phone, notebook, and some toiletries. There's nothing I can use to defend myself. I'm trying to figure out how big this old man could be, but I can't tell. I'm only 126 pounds soaking wet at this age, with a little upper body strength. I don't know if I can do anything if he decides to get out of the car. He's by himself, but what if he has a knife? I have to go in front or behind this car just to keep taking this route home. If I do, will he try to hit me? Will he try to knock me down or back over me with his car? I felt like all of these thoughts were happening in an instant, and I'm confused. I just want to go home. He stares at me from inside the car with his look of anger, but he doesn't say anything. It's just silent between us other than the sound of the cars going by, and he's just staring. It was only like this for a few seconds, but it felt like forever. Once the road is clear, he peeled out into traffic and was gone. I was left standing in the sidewalk of that busy street, confused, tired, and shaking with adrenaline. I just kept thinking to myself over and over, what the fuck was that? I'm not sure whatever happened to that man. I'm sure he has had some sort of plan figured out. Find a girl, ask her how to get to a well-known street, let her list off the directions, pretend to be a feeble old man that needs help getting there, then hope she's naive enough to accept your request of being the co-pilot. I don't think he was counting on someone not knowing how to get to that street. I really hope he didn't go on to perfect this method and use it on some girl or boy in the future. I think back on this now and wonder if I could have reacted differently. I wish if I had seen his license plate at least. I don't think that just because you're on a busy street in broad daylight that you're safe, or that nothing could happen to you. Keep your eyes peeled, be prepared, and don't worry about not being polite. When your gut is telling you something, you better listen to it. So I just moved to New York back in July from Mississippi, and hadn't had any problems until January. So I go to a high school that's maybe 10 minutes driving away from my house. And I take the bus every day to and from school. Usually my mom will pick me up from the bus stop and take me home, and I usually only have to wait like a minute or two. This day I was waiting for like 10 minutes, and I called her a couple of times, but she didn't answer, so I assumed that she fell asleep like she does sometimes. So I decided to just walk home. I usually go in a straight line for 3 streets, and then I make a right and walk straight down from there. On this day, I was wearing a tank top with a jacket on, Batman pajama pants, and old school style Vans. The perfect outfit for walking in the snow, right? Anyways, as I'm walking straight down, I see a man who is in the front of me and walking the same way as me, so I take the right turn early, as I can just walk that way, but it just involves a couple more turns. Because I like to be cautious when dealing with other people on the street, especially if I'm alone. So as I'm walking down and started to make the right turn, I see that this man is now walking the opposite way he was before, and is now walking towards me, which sets off some red flags in my head immediately. This guy is probably 5'11" to 6 foot tall, wearing a black beanie, tan jacket, and blue jeans, and I'm a very small girl, about 5'2", so I knew that if he wanted me, he definitely had a high chance of getting exactly what he wanted. So I naturally start walking faster than I already was, and turn as he's probably 10 yards away from me, and I'm walking really fast straight down. I'm walking for about 5 minutes, turning around to check and see if he made the turn after me, and didn't see him until the last time I turned around. He made the turn and was walking straight for me. So I start speed walking while I'm also on the verge of a panic attack, and all adrenaline was kicked in. And then so does he. I stay at the same speed for a couple of minutes so I don't tip him off, and let him know that I can see he's following me. After that couple of minutes, I see my house, and I just book it to my house. Turn around to see him running right after me. I finally make it into my house, and just start crying as soon as I get inside the door. Weird, creepy guy who likes to follow 16-year-old girls. Let's never cross paths again. I'm going to make sure that I'm ready to defend myself next time.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.